Hi, I'm Erin Marcus, former corporate executive turned entrepreneur and founder and CEO of Conquer Your Business. Welcome to the Ready Yet podcast. We're excited to bring you more than 100 episodes of interviews and insights designed to help entrepreneurs get the financial and emotional freedom they need in order to build a business and a life they're proud of. All right. Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. My guest today, Jeff Blackman, this was hysterical because I know we're going to get into building relationships and how do you build relationships. But when you and I chatted, we realized, forget like 7 degrees of separation. You were in college with my cousin. Your uncle was my science teacher in 7th and 8th grade. And I think more people are more connected than they realize if they're willing to have those conversations, right? And figure that out. So I can't wait to talk to you about your approach to initiating conversations and initiating relationships and how you do that. But before we get in all that, why don't you tell people a little officially who you are, what you do, and all the cool stuff?
So you referenced your relationship with my uncle, Alvin, who unfortunately just passed away in December of 2023. And your first cousin, that's my fraternity brother, Jack Orlov, who I affectionately refer to as J.O., and he calls me J.B. But I'm pretty sure if we dig deeper, Erin, you and I are probably directly related to Kevin Bacon.
Right. Well, isn't everybody, right? Isn't that how that works?
Just a theory.
Just a theory. Absolutely.
So to answer your question, if someone says, Jeff, so what do you do? Depending upon who I'm chatting with, I'll actually say to them, I'm a business growth specialist, and I help CEOs and entrepreneurs and the members of their senior leadership team and their salespeople sleep really, really well at night. And I pause and people go, well, how do you do that? And I go, everybody's different. What's cooking in your business? So I immediately make it about them. And I learned the value of really asking good questions based upon my background in 2 specific ways. One is an attorney. So I've actually been a lawyer since 1982. The good news is I really never practiced law because it didn't give me the creative outlet that I wanted. Undergraduate, University of Illinois in advertising, and I just didn't get creatively what I wanted from the law. So I really never practiced because I wanted to litigate. And then you quickly discover, Erin, as you well know, litigators don't litigate.
No, most people don't litigate.
They want to avoid court. It's expensive, it's tiresome, it's exhaustive. And the other place that I really learned how to ask very good questions in terms of deepening, strengthening relationships is as a broadcaster. So I did radio and TV here in Chicago, always as a complement to what I was doing professionally. So I've now been in business since really 1982 when I chose not to practice law. So it's 42 years. But the background of asking questions, the people that I met that I interviewed, folks like Caitlyn Jenner, who I knew was Bruce Jenner when I interviewed him in the 1980s, Apollo 13 astronaut Jim Lovell, Jerry Seinfeld. So I learned a great deal in terms of how do you really get folks to open up to learn what's important to them.
Well, and I love this approach of asking questions. So I have a degree in journalism. I was, as a child with no credentials whatsoever, was lucky enough to interview Paul Simon, who was gracious enough to even give me a moment of his time. But that is one of the things he was always known for. And I also interviewed Mike Madigan before he went to the federal government while he was still here. I think I was like 19.
So let me ask you a question then. What did you learn from Paul Simon and Mike Madigan that you found especially interesting?
The thing that I learned as a reporter was a continuation of experiences I had in high school. So I went to Chicago Public High School with people from 22 different countries. Most of them didn't speak English. None of us had any money. And you just learn people are people. Because there was such a broad array of types of people. And yet here we all were just trying to, crank out a living, even as children. And what I learned from Paul Simon and Mike Madigan, and I covered murder trials, again, as a 19-year-old, as a 20-year-old, is that people are just people. And that you don't have to be intimidated by them or starstruck by them. But to your point, if you're honestly curious about them, most people will respond very positively, as opposed to situations where you're being manipulatively curious, or it really goes to your intention. And so it's not just, to me, it's not just enough to ask questions, but what is your intention with that relationship? The energy behind it, your come from energy, that is really going to make a difference between whether or not you connect with someone or not.
It's so interesting that you talk about intention when I work with clients, whether it's one-to-one or working with clients in a team or a coaching or a workshop, ongoing system process. I stress to them when it comes to questions, first, they've got to focus on what I call relationship power. Relationship power has got a little r and a big R. Everyone says their business is a relationship business, Erin. But I go, that's drivel. They go, what do you mean? I go, it's not deep enough. You need to look at relationships from those two perspectives. The little r is your humanity, sincerity, dignity, courtesy. In essence, your ability to be a mensch, be
Right.
a good person. That's important, but it's not enough. Folks go, well, then what's the big R? And the big R is what I call being a growth specialist based upon your product or your service or your solution. It's the ability to help others maximize gain, minimize loss, improve performance, productivity, profitability. And then when you know what's driving the relationship, you can then elevate to the three P's of beginning the relationship. Folks go, what are you talking about? What are the three P's? And I go, one, know your purpose. Why are you engaged in the conversation? Whether it's virtual, telephone, in writing, in person, know your purpose. What's the goal? What's the objective? Number two is you need to know your power probes.
Mm.
And power probes are open-ended need development questions. We can explore those a little bit further soon. But the third P is often where people stop or pause for too long. It's the parade of progress. So, what are you doing to advance to the next meeting, conversation, whatever it might be? Know your purpose, know your power probes, and then in addition, what's the parade of progress to keep things moving forward? That helps you avoid another P, and that's purgatory. What the heck is going on?
Nothing's happening. Well, in the way that you describe it, so in my business, we do business strategy with a heavy emphasis on client acquisition systems, which often involve a lot of marketing. And
Mhm.
I tell people the mistake I watch people make a lot in small business is, I call it jumping steps,
Mhm.
because to me, communication always only has one intention. There's only one intention every time you communicate with somebody else, and that's to invite them to take one more step with you.
Mhm.
One more step with you. And so you see the breakdown occur when, to your kind of to add your point in here, when they jump the relationship building and they go right from introduction to ultimate end result they're hoping might happen, and they become a client, they want a referral, and they don't take the steps. You're not going to sell somebody a $30,000 product with your 30-second introduction, so stop trying. Just invite people to take one more step with you, and you'd be amazed how faster you get to a desirable outcome for both parties.
Yeah, what's so interesting and baffling and confusing and frustrating about that is folks are willing to avoid the steps.
Yes.
And we see it all the time. You and I might get a call out of nowhere and someone starts a pitch or a spiel or a presentation. People do it via email, and they especially do it via LinkedIn.
What is up with that at this point? So here's my analysis to this. This is how I don't know how I came up with this, but one day this is how I felt. If you remember in the 80s and 90s, when you would go to the mall, you'd have to go through the department store to get into the mall. And you always entered into the first floor, into the big fancy cosmetics section with the perfume people. Now, yes, I chose to go to the mall because I was meeting a friend for lunch. However, the perfume bandits, as soon as you walked in the door, would start assaulting you with samples of cologne and perfume, which you did not agree to experience. And that's how LinkedIn feels to me right now. I agreed to be on the platform. I didn't agree. This is not a sales conversation because I never agreed to receive your pitch.
So to combat, by the way, your mall example, I would enter that department with a super soaker that was filled with water.
Right?
So that was my
Water them all
defense
down.
mechanism. So when I entered, they saw me, they would hide. They would just take cover, Erin.
It was
So
difficult.
I got this week, someone, no idea who he is, but proceeded to explain to me why he'd be a terrific financial advisor for me. And I was going to respond, thank you so much for your kind offer. Yet we've had a financial advisor for years we've been very happy with. And then I decided, why bother?
Why bother?
He doesn't get it. He didn't get it.
No, they don't get it. And somebody is out there clearly teaching people that this is a process because so many people are doing it.
It's just absurd. And I think it's stupid because what
It's
it
a
does
waste of
is that it
time.
skips so many steps.
Right.
In the pages of Peak Your Profits, one of my 6, thankfully been fortunate, best-selling books, in that book, in the 5th edition, we outline the 6 steps of the opportunity selling process. But one of the real key steps, as we've alluded to, is the ability to ask really good questions, what we
Yes.
call power probes. So I encourage folks to create what I call a dynamic dozen. And the dynamic dozen, Erin, is at least 12 open-ended need development questions. They begin with a who, a
Yes.
what, a when, a where, a why, a which, a how, or here comes the TED principle, the T, tell me more about, the E, explain to me how, the D, describe for me. So who, what, when, where, why, which, how, tell me more about, explain to me, or describe for me. And I urge people, do not ask closed-ended questions. They go, wait a minute, are you telling us to never ask closed-ended questions? And I go, no, didn't say that. There are 2 times. What are they? Qualification purposes and
Mm-hmm.
decision time. Then it's okay to seek yay, nay. And when I start working with so many folks in any industry, and in 42 years, I've worked in all different types of industries. If there's a number one deficiency in terms of a skill, then executed to behavior, it's the ability to ask really good questions. People go, well, like what? And I go, I can only give you some examples, but then you can apply them to your business. And then a little bit later, I'll give people the opportunity to actually get what we call a sweet 16 of power probes. But let me give you an example. Even if I get the question, Jeff, how can you help us? My immediate response is, I'm not sure if I can. First, I need to learn more about your business. And one of the things that leaders like you really appreciate is when very early we can discover where you're at as an organization, where would you like to be, and how do you want to get there? We call that the world's fastest strategic plan. And anybody
It's
listening
so true, right?
can
It really
adopt that. Yeah,
isn't
they can
any
adopt
harder
it
than that.
immediately.
Right.
And I asked a client yesterday, now we've already done some other work for them in 2023, but in a conversation yesterday, I asked him, I go, tell me more about your key goals or strategic initiatives for this year. What's top of mind? And I always ask these 2 questions, which most people don't. How will we measure success? And what will you value most in our relationship? They eliminate the assumption, Erin, and they confirm the expectation. So I don't assume because now I've got the ability to know.
Well, the other thing with purely selfish, right? So the purely selfish reason to ask questions, especially in a sales situation and with it takes all the pressure off of you. So I have this journalism degree, I have an MBA with a marketing focus, and I used to put all this pressure on myself to try to come up with the perfect thing to say to get someone to buy from me. And it's the completely wrong approach because there
Mhm.
isn't a perfect thing to say to get anyone to buy from you. And all that did was put me in my own head. And once I switch to where my entire process is questions, 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 not only do I build these better relationships, you have a higher closing rate from a sales perspective, not just a higher closing rate, but you enjoy those clients more because you know you're the right fit for each other before you even get that far. But it takes all the pressure off of you.
And it's so interesting when you reference closing. Let's table that for about 60 seconds. I want to come back to that because words, as we both know, you and I make our living with words, whether it's spoken or whether it's printed. Words really matter. So we'll come back just to the word closing soon. So, want to make available a special opportunity for your listeners or viewers. If they would like for us to send them the Sweet 16 of Power Probes that they can immediately apply to their business for both short and long-term results, really simple. Here's all they need to do. Send an email to Cheryl, Sheryl, at jeffblackman.com. One more time, Cheryl at jeffblackman.com. In the subject, put Erin rocks. And if you simply put Erin rocks, we'll know exactly what that
know
means.
what you're talking.
We will then send this Sweet 16 of Power Probes that others have been able to use with immediate impact upon their business. One more time, subject, Erin rocks to Cheryl, Sheryl, at jeffblackman.com, and we'll send this list of an initial Sweet 16 of Power Probes. Okay, let's go back real quickly to the word closing. In the opportunity selling process, there are 6 steps. It's OPR, TN, TY. So if you take a look at that, yes, it's an acronym, but it's the word opportunity. So the final stage, what most people call the close, we call TY the yes. And we urge people to seek the yes, not to close. They go, why? And I stress that closing is a word of conclusion. It's a word of termination. It means something is done. Ain't true. We both know the relationship now is really just beginning.
Yes.
So the yes allows you to keep the door open. That's the first step. O, open. P, probe. R, reveal the solution. What problem can I help you solve? Need help you fill or dream or goal help you get? T is translate. Not what something is, but what it does. Too often people focus on the is feature, not the does, benefit, result, advantage, outcome. N, negotiate, and then TY, the yes, which keeps the door open for the next opportunity. So we really urge our clients, we ain't going to teach you how to close. And once they seek the yes, it elevates the relationship to a different level. Now, let me stress the distinction. We help our clients become partners, not vendors. And they go, well, what's the difference? And I stress that vendors are expendable.
It's a commodity, right? It's a race to
Partners
the
are
bottom.
invaluable.
Yeah.
Vendors expendable, partners invaluable, Erin.
Absolutely, absolutely. And then one of the things that I learned back when I was in financial services, and I thought this was a great way to kind of circle back on when do you ask a close-ended question and it's, decision time. We used to say the worst thing somebody could say to me after we have a conversation about working together is, I'm not sure. Because it means you didn't have the conversation that you needed to have. Let me think about it. Like anything that leaves space, I always take it upon myself. Well, if you're not sure, I didn't answer enough of your questions.
And you've got to isolate why they're not sure.
Right.
But if you get to decision time, and if there's still an element of not sure, you haven't, just as you alluded to, discovered early what are the key things they want to accomplish. That's why you ask really good questions. Once again, what problem can I help you solve? What need can I help you fill? Or what dream or goal can I help you get? If one of those 3 does not exist, you probably do not have a prospect. At best, you've got a suspect. And with suspects, it's okay very early to say sayonara. Arrivederla, shalom, dos Fadonia, catch you later. I'm out of here. And that's okay. Yet one other thing, even if you determine that you don't have the ability to help somebody or they're not the right prospect, you can still ask for referrals.
Right.
And people go,
My last business, my number one source of referrals in the last business I owned were with prospects that I didn't turn into clients because they should have never been my client.
mm-hmm,
They were people, I had a business working with families with aging parents, and there was a lot of times when my services were expensive. And there was a lot of time where they just didn't have enough work that would
mm-hmm,
make sense for them to pay me
mm-hmm,
to do what they needed to do. It was
mm-hmm.
literally like a 2 phone call situation. And I would just give them my contact. I would literally give them the information, said, listen, you don't have to pay me to do this. Call this number, tell them the secret words. Erin said, yes, this is worth it. And they will just help you. There's no reason for me to get in the middle of that and charge them money. That group of people who never became my clients gave me more referrals than anybody else.
Yeah, it's remarkable when you've got the ego in a positive way. And ego is not about an inflated sense of self. It's about your appreciation for your value, your worth, and contribution. And the willingness to walk away and urge them to have a discussion with somebody else is a very powerful strategy.
So why don't, here's you, here's me. This whole concept of, building relationships by asking questions, closing sales by asking questions, really getting to most of the goals that we want in life by being willing to ask questions. Where's the gap? Why don't more people know this? Why aren't they comfortable doing this? Like, where are the pitfalls?
You want me to be honest or diplomatic?
Honest, it's me.
So, by the way, that's one of the questions that I ask leaders, CEOs, presidents. I ask them that question early in our conversation. I go, as we work together and I learn more about you and your organization, how do you want me to communicate with you? And I pause and they go, what do you mean? And I go, is
How
your
direct
preference?
am I allowed to be?
I ask, I go, would you prefer I be honest or diplomatic? And what do you think they always say?
They all say honest, but I
They
don't think
all say
most
honest.
people want that.
So I never, though, use the language, let me be honest, let me be frank, trust me, because that implies that if you don't say it, you ain't it. And
I
I
always
always
give
am.
people, the way that I give people a warning. I just say, look, I'm real direct. I should just give that disclaimer right up front. I don't have time you don't want me to waste time blowing smoke up your skirt.
So the greatest compliment that I ever got from a CEO was when he said to me, and we worked together with multiple divisions of this financial services company. And he said to me, Blackman, what I really love about you and our relationship is you never protect your butt and you never kiss mine. So the reason that I stress that, and whomever is listening now, whatever your business is, let me stress, it is not your role to simply do everything your decision maker wants you to do. Do not appease and please. And some people are probably going, huh? What are you talking about? Here's what I mean. It's your job to challenge your decision makers in terms of how they think about what they do, how they do it, and why they do it. If you appease and please, you're only doing what they want you to do, and it may not be in their best interest. And over the decades, I've told numerous clients, I go, if you'd like to do that, that's fine. I will not help you implement that. It's not in your best interest. And I won't do it.
And to not be scared to surround yourself with people who will challenge you. I mean, my COO has done this now 2 or 3 times in the last 6 months. Now she's much more diplomatic than I am, and she will preface her comments with, how does she say it? She's very nice. She says, "Would you like me to reflect back to you what it is that I'm hearing?" I'm usually a little more abrupt and just dive right in. But she'll say that to me. And in these three different situations, she's like, you don't like this, you don't like that, you're not happy about this, you don't want to do that. Why are we doing XYZ? And I was so grateful because I went, you know what, you're right, and we're not doing it. We're not doing it. It's that simple. But we get into our own tailspin so much that sometimes it's hard to observe that for ourselves. And you need to surround yourself with the people who will ask you, why are we doing this? I was hiring people when I was back in corporate, and I loved hiring people who had no experience, who would follow me around, asking me why we were doing everything. Because I should have to justify it. I should have to explain it. Otherwise, why are we doing it?
And when there's a high level of trust, when there's mutual respect, it goes both ways. So my clients know that I will push back, but I encourage them to do the same thing. I go, push back, offer resistance. I say, I am a Chicago Cub fan, have been my entire life. I'm used to pain and suffering.
You're not going to offend me if you don't like my idea.
Despite 2016, they've ripped my heart out for decades. Push back. And that's really the most healthy relationships. Because I always say to clients, if you've got two members of your team and they're always in agreement, one of them is not necessary.
Right.
You don't need them.
So where can someone start? I know that you offered, and we'll make sure that we have all this in the show notes as well, and you offered the probing questions, but how does somebody start if they want, because both of us have that kind of base driver of relationship building, which is very interesting because on my Clifton Strength Finders, there's no relationship building in my top 10. It's all influencer and act and strategic thinking. So my relationships are very goal oriented. And yet I've referred out millions and millions of dollars of business and excited to do so. If somebody is aware that this is something they want to really build this year and really add to their portfolio of really advantages, how do they start?
So it's really important to define what's important to you. And if we go back to what I alluded to early in our conversation, you can answer the world's fastest strategic plan with respect to yourself. Where are you? Where would you like to be? And how do you want to get there? And ultimately, it's a question of your skills, your attitudes, and your behaviors, which leads, though, to your ideas, your beliefs, and then your action. When all is said and done, more should not be said than done. When I am working with either a team or an individual and they say, I would like to, and I go, well, super. So you will do what? By when? And they go, oh man, yeah, you're going to hold me accountable, aren't you? So Jerry Seinfeld is one of the folks who I had a chance to interview on my radio show. And remember, he would often ask, as part of his comedy routine, what's up with that?
Right.
So if a client makes a commitment to me and they don't honor it, they know I'll keep them accountable. And I'll simply say, what's up with that? You told me you were going to do X by Y and you didn't. And that's really the simple success formula. What will you do? By when will you do it? If not, it ain't fact. It's fantasy. It's not reality. It's rhetoric. And I'm not a fan of rhetoric, but I am a fan of another R word, and that's results. That's why people hire me. That's why they hire you, Erin, to help them generate the results. And this stuff works, talking about referrals. So we helped one financial services client generate $230 million in new business, all from referrals in the span of 23 months.
Wow.
At zero acquisition cost. And somebody could read the entire story if they simply go to jeffblackman.com, and you'll see how we did that for Bank One. And the same strategies are applicable to any business. Let's go back to referrals real quickly, because folks will often say, oh, I just forget to ask. So I came up with the acronym REMEMBER, REMEMBER, referrals every moment, every month bring excellent results. Or the last ER is also extra revenue.
And it
Business
does,
is
like you
about,
said, it doesn't cost anything.
doesn't cost anything. because business is about what? Acquisition, satisfaction, retention. If you do those three really well, you'll be in business a long time and profitably for a long time. And all you need to do is ask. And as long as people know that your relationship is based upon what I call the VINE philosophy, VIN, you've got to be value driven, integrity based, and non-manipulative, non-negotiables.
Yeah.
And if you're those three things, people trust you. And I always stress, when trust is high, what's low? Fear. When trust is high, what's low? Fear. And if the opposite is true, if fear is high and trust is low, people do not want to work with you. They're scared, and they've got every reason to be scared.
I mean, and if anything, if you wrap this all up, asking the questions, build the relationships, showing up to those relationships in integrity, do what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it, brings in the referrals, or the ability, or the way that I like to say it is earns you the right to be able to ask for the referrals, right? You have to earn the right to even be able to make that ask. And now you're talking about exponential client acquisition as a result.
And you can earn the right even if you haven't helped the individual who's making the introduction. As long as they liked you, they can trust you, you went out of your way to attempt to help them, even though it might not work, they will still make introductions. And I have gotten numerous clients over the decades from introductions of people who I didn't work with. But they said, Jeff, you need to meet, and that led to business.
Absolutely. So if people want to continue this conversation with you and learn more about how you help them, read your books, all of the things, what is the best way for them to find you?
So I'm an easy guy to find. First, if they simply want to shoot me an email, they're welcome to do that. It's my initials, JB at jeffblackman.com. They can send me an email, they can call, go to the website. You'll see there are lots of ways to be able to reach me, but it's always going to begin with a conversation because I really have to understand what's it about you. And I stress that to folks. How many websites do we go to, Erin, and it says about us? And I urge my clients to go, you can leave it if you want, but you're telling people that if you click here, this has got nothing to do with you. It's all about us.
This is the page that's all about me.
And for that reason, we don't have about us at our website. Instead, it says meet Jeff, because that's what I like to do, is for you to meet me and I can meet you. It doesn't even say contact. The word is connect.
I think mine says meet the team.
Well, cool.
I don't even remember.
So words are incredibly important. Let me share one simple strategy that everyone can apply. If someone gets the traditional question, well, why you? People get excited and they do this data dump mistake. People say, well, what do I do? Here's the subtlety. It's really simple. Clients tell us. Customers appreciate how. So you deliver the success story from somebody else's perspective. But then the key is once you've delivered how you help somebody else, you ask the question, how do you think those kinds of results will help you?
Yes.
So there's a process. There's a methodology.
There's a method to the madness. As I tell people, your business is not about you. The more you can realize that your business is not about you, the better results you'll get.
And that's the greatest juice that I've had for 42 years when people tell me, hey, I did this and here's the result. Because if people aren't happy, they're protected, and folks will see this at our website, Erin. We've got a no risk assurance. If you don't think we're going to help you generate dollars equal to or way in excess of whatever we did for you, whether it's a book like Bullseye or Peak Your Profits or an entire coaching or a learning system, let us know. We'll give you every penny back. And we've never lost the bet. Never. But I'll put my butt on the line because they know I'm then committed to help them. Right. So the good news is in 42 years, have never lost.
So far, so good. Awesome. Well, thank you for joining me today. Thank you for your time and your approach. Just from a learning perspective, I like having frameworks. It makes it easier for people to, kind of really hear what you're saying and remember what you're saying. So I love the way you're sharing your information with us. So thank you, thank you, thank you.
Pleasure's mine. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Ready Yet podcast. I truly enjoy bringing these stories of success and inspiration to you. Please join us in our mission to empower entrepreneurs to be in charge of their businesses and in charge of their lives by sharing this with anyone you know who would benefit from our tactical and motivating advice, leaving us a review, and letting us know if there are any particular topics you would really appreciate hearing about. See you next time.